Welcome to Tao Living, the Art of Living podcast with your host, Lou Corletto, where you will be supported to remember that you are the driver and not the vehicle, so that you can walk your life in trust. Well, hello, beautiful people, and welcome to the very first fireside chat for the Tao Living podcast. This is coming about because I just finished a really intense breath work. So that's why I'm sitting down near the fire. My clients know this particular breath work as bucket breath work. So there's many beautiful styles of breath work, and they're all appropriate for the intent of the usage, right? From the basics of diaphragmatic breathing to alternate nostril breathing, to calm the system down, parasympathetic ratio breathing, all kinds of beautiful breath and pranayama. And then there's one particular that's really intense to do purging. And I mean purging very similar to, for those who've partaken in plant medicine, like yahe or ayahuasca. It gets to that level, hence the bucket, right? So bucket breath work. And so I just finished a session, and so Spirit's moving a message through, and we'll see how this turns out. Yeah, so thanks for tuning in to the session. Let me start with this. I'm gonna dump my screen here for a second and do some screen sharing. I just pulled these couple images up really quick. This is obviously an impromptu decision. And so I'm gonna dump my image, hang tight. Yeah, there it goes. So what you're seeing on the screen is an old classic diagram of the electromagnetic spectrum. And I'm not even sure if my cursor shows up here or not. So on the left side of your screen, like where you see this, the boom box, right? So that's radio waves, and then TV waves and microwaves. So these are the long wavelengths, hence this image, the gap between the curves, right? So long wavelengths. And then the eyeball shows what we as humans can see, the visible light spectrum. So that's it, this little tiny gap up in here. And then past that, we have things like X-ray, gamma ray, cosmic rays, yada, yada, yada. So the point I'm sharing this is all of these exist. We even interact with them. Like people are watching TV and listen to the music, right? So, but we don't see them because of their wavelength. All of these exist, but we don't see them. This is all we see. And being very sight-driven as people, we tend to think the only things we can see are real, or that's at least where we focus our attention, right? So hang with me. If this idea that's moving through me comes out, then it should be quite profound. And if I've not pulled it off, I didn't pull it off. So let me zoom in a little bit. This is from the Esther Hicks work, the emotional guidance scale, right? The emotional guidance system. And in essence, it's the same thing, frequency scale, right? So the lower frequencies, the lower wavelengths, fear, grief, depression, right? As we come up this ladder, anger, revenge, right? Worry, doubt, pessimism. These are the lower frequencies. And then as we start to ascend past a certain point, we get into things like contentment and optimism and enthusiasm and passion and joy and bliss and freedom, right? Appreciation, gratitude. So these are all emotional frequencies, very similar to the electromagnetic scale. We can call this the emotional magnetic scale, if you will, right? And then if we go here, this is David Hawkins' work, right? The consciousness scale, if you will. And so again, the lower frequencies, things like shame, guilt, apathy, fear. And then as we transcend anger, pride, courage, then willingness, acceptance, and reason, then love, joy, peace, and enlightenment, right? So these, again, are all frequency-based. Okay, great. What does this have to do with anything you might be asking? Well, this is an image, and I'll show you the actual software in a second. And I'm just going to play with a metaphor that's been moving through me recently, and I haven't finished unpacking the metaphor. So again, thanks for hanging in there. This is actually new technology, kind of new, but for audio engineers. And what you're seeing on the screen here is what's called spectral layers. So you're seeing frequencies and harmonics. Duh, there we go. Yeah. So like this red is the guitar. So this is a music clip, but showed in visible spectrum frequency bands, not the classic waveform, which would be this thing up here, right? And so bass, drums, guitar, right? All of this. So let me jump out of here. I don't know if I can get to the other software from there. I don't think I can. Cool. What you're seeing on your screen now is actual software that I have on my computer. It's by a company called Isotope, and it's called RX. Now, this is not an audio editing episode, so hang tight. This is a metaphor about consciousness and healing, right? Excuse me. Again, remember the inspiration for this was my recent, like 30 minutes ago, bucket breath work, if you will. That's what my clients call it, the bucket breath work. So what you're seeing on the screen here, these squiggly lines, these are called waveforms. And if you were to record something, your sound, music, this is what it typically looks like, a waveform. And this is there's two because it's a left and right channel. And then this one spike here is because there's a sound, right? So the concept is if, let's say I was recording a conversation with somebody really important, and while I'm talking, somebody's cell phone goes off. That cell phone sound is now baked and embedded inside of this waveform, and it's almost impossible to get out. However, with newer technology, check this out. That's the classic waveform. This is how they edit now in these spectral bands. And these are all the frequencies and the harmonics that are represented in this process. So they can literally walk right in and find out, there's, and I'm just hypothetical right now, there's the cell phone, and they can just pull that out without affecting the vocals of the two speakers, and then clean it up as if the cell phone never was there. If prior to that technology, this is all you had, almost impossible to do, right? Now, again, this is not an audio engineering. First of all, I'm not an audio engineer. This is not an audio editing podcast, right? Or even an episode. So hang with me, if you will, to see if I can unpack this. Back to the electromagnetic spectrum. We only see a small section of it, but the rest of it's still there. The emotional guidance scale. We oscillate up and down through that scale, depending on our feelings and our moods and our emotions and what's going on in our life. The consciousness scale, unfortunately, most people hang out in a certain place, but we have the capacity to, go either direction, right? If we let life get a hold of us, we'll spiral down into those places, right? The anger and the resentment and the grief and stay there. But we don't have to. We can always ascend and come back up. And so my point of this is I was just talking to a client a few hours ago, and I was using this perspective. If this is, let's just call this like the lower vibration of the physical body, right? This down here, this brighter orange. Let's call it you, but that's just your physical body. This is what most people focus on because that's all they're aware of. That's all they see, like the visible spectrum, right? So the longer wavelengths and the shorter wavelengths, so the lower frequencies and the higher frequency of the electromagnetic spectrum are still there. We just don't have perception of them. And so the rest of the frequencies of you, your mental body, your emotional body, your spiritual body, these frequencies that start to get higher vibration, they're still you. But since you're not aware of them or don't see them, they're out of sight, out of mind. Therefore, then that's all I am. That's all my. And it's not true, right? But there's ways to access that, right? Like different forms of breath work, right? Which is what initiated this entire episode. Why do that though? Why do that? So, this leads me into even, let's see, what are we at? Almost 8 weeks from now, I'm sitting in our property. So May 18 to 21, Lydia and I are holding a retreat called the Art of Living Retreat. And it's sticking with this metaphor. It's so you can access your entire bandwidth, right? So you can move into the different dimensions of yourself and grab a hold of patterns that are adversely affecting you from your greatness, from your well-being, from your success, whatever that is. If there's stories stuck in your subconscious, we can get to them. If it's things stuck in your physical body, we can get to them. So we have access to that full spectrum, and we'll show you how to get access to it as well. And we have the tools. After 35 years, myself and same with Liddy, traveling the world, this is our vocation to learn, grow, and evolve. We have so many tools to help people that there's too many. And so we don't use the ones that aren't effective. We use the ones that are really effective, right? And it's done in a very safe environment. It might be scary, but that's just because you're going to heal, right? But it's safe. And to be able to access your full spectrum allows you to become whole and heal again. Otherwise, we have stuff that's outside of the range that is then adversely affecting your essence. However that plays out. I'll go ahead and stop screen sharing now and see if I can pull myself back up here. Yeah. Right. And so again, it's what I've been doing for the last 35 years, learning about myself, growing, healing, and evolving, and helping people professionally. That's what I do. And watching where we get hung up as people, the experiences we've had, the stimuli in our life. And remember, the stuff that was yummy, we've integrated and moved on. It's the stuff that wasn't necessarily so yummy, or we gave it a meaning that it wasn't so yummy, but we're still trapped by that meaning we gave it. And therefore, it's still affecting us in our life, right? It plays out in our relationships. It plays out in your success. It plays out in your business. It plays out in your communication. It plays out in your well-being. So again, just 30 minutes ago, and I've been doing this stuff for decades. And I just did a deep breath work and I accessed some stuff that was quite deep. So it's in different parts of the spectrum that I just showed you on that isotope, right? That editing program. It's in different parts of my spectrums that's not apparent, but it's there, right? So just because you don't see it or you're not aware, does not mean it's not impacting you, right? Quite the opposite. It is, and you're not aware. It just shows up now in life. And then the question is, why is this happening? Why can't I achieve this? What is happening? So we get to take the mystery away from that, right? And so I hold the space. I have no idea till I hit stop and listen to this again myself, if any of this even came out in a way that makes any kind of sense. But my intent was this. We have all experienced things in our life, directly, indirectly from family environment, right? Or from the environment, from our family lineage, things that we took on as patterns and as ways of behaving, as ways of showing up, but they're not ours, but we run them, right? We run the subconscious patterns that have been programmed into our system. And we think they're ours, right? Sometimes we even think we're choosing our own conscious thoughts, but we're not. We seem to be choosing a thought, but it's not really ours because it's still pre-programmed from other stuff. That might sound kind of weird and esoteric, but we can unpack that in a different episode to explain to you what I mean. And so in summary is there's ways, right? So let me wrap it in this way that makes sense to a lot of people. If you've ever attempted to heal from something, especially in your body, and don't seem to be able to get to it, meaning it doesn't get resolution, it might get better, but it never resolves, it's because you're only getting to one part of that spectrum that I showed you. When we get through the whole spectrum, it's done. It's done. You have complete healing resolution. And that's the work that I have been working with for decades and decades, right? So I'm really good at that. So if you'd like to get access to your full spectrum, check out the link. I'll put it into this episode as well about the art of living. Come play, join us, and see what your life can be when you have full access to all of you. Thanks for tuning in to the Tao Living Podcast. Abundant blessings. Peace. Ciao. Thank you for tuning in to the Tao Living Podcast, the art of living. click the link in the show notes for the complete details for the May 18 to May 21 Art of Living Retreat, or go to my website, loucorletto.com. Under Programs, scroll down to Live Events and choose the Art of Living, Tao Living 4-Day Retreat. Until next time, abundant blessings. Ciao.